Something in the way. Something in the way. Anyways, I just finished watching Batman, so I felt like I would drop the greatest cover to that song in the world on this video before I started. Yeah, this video is gonna be kind of a weird one because I haven't recorded it in like 6 or 5 days, and the thing is, I just finished re-listening back to part 1, and it's so funny to me because you guys never hear whenever like I pause the video and I'm like, can you guys shut up? Because my family is just being super loud, and I'm just like, please, like I told y'all to be quiet 10 times already. And you just got my mom in the background using the blender and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like it's fun. Anyways, point being, like in the video, I was just hearing myself, and like there'd be parts where like I could tell I was frustrated, and I was just having a blast like listening to myself. But anyways, we had left off with Izuku finding himself in the perspective of UA High's doors. The second that Izuku would walk inside, Izuku would be greeted to a scene of Ida and Bakugo arguing about something seemingly really dumb. As Izuku would make his way towards that direction, before he could actually completely close the gap between them, a young girl would actually appear behind him and say, "Hey, you're the guy who saved me during the entrance exam, aren't you?" As Izuku would turn towards her and say, "Oh, you're the brown-haired girl." He's like, "Gravity Quirk, right?" As she would say, "Yeah, that's me." Izuku would smile at her. He'd begin to, have up a whole conversation asking her about her quirk, and even delving into the details of her drawbacks, as Uraraka would explain that her quirk is pretty much called anti-gravity, going on to explain that its defects, or its disadvantages, is the fact that she gets these weird tummy aches whenever she uses it, and it usually causes her to throw up. As she says, it's not pleasant. And from here, Izuku starts laughing like crazy, as he would then go on to explain that his quirk is pretty much Toon Force. As she's like, "What are you talking about?" He just goes on to pretty much tell her, "You ever seen Looney Tunes?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, you mean the show about the bunny and the duck?" As Izuku's like, "Yeah, something like that." As he goes on to explain that ability that they have to just pretty much whip things out of nowhere and do things that seemingly break the laws of physics and are pretty much impossible, that's what Izuku's quirk allows him to do. She's like, "That's incredible, but wouldn't that come with a great drawback?" As Izuku would say, "That's the thing, I don't have a drawback." She's like, "What, really?" And as they're having this conversation, you would just see Aizawa right behind them, as he's like, "Are you guys done so we can finally get class started?" As Izuku turned it towards Aizawa, would be like, "What you doing, Aizawa? You feeling good today, pal?" As Aizawa would go on to say, "Just sit down." As Izuku would go make his way towards the seat, and eventually, he would tell everybody to put these clothes on and meet him outside, to which everybody would do so, to which they finally end up beginning the UA Quirk apprehension test. The second that they would make their way out to, actually, before I keep going, I've been having these really bad, like, moments in time where I just completely blank out, so I'm gonna whip out the My Hero Academia timeline from the beginning. That way I'm able to just keep track of everything. Okay, yeah, I was right. Quirk apprehension. Dude, I've made like 500 My Hero what ifs and I still don't remember this. So it's just like, come on now. Oh, also, quick side note, I'm going to be making a video called How I Make What Ifs. Just pretty much breaking down how I make the videos, how I started, and showing you guys that if I could do it, then anybody could do it. I mean, come on, I was just a 15-year-old kid in my room. But anyway, stay tuned for that video. It's going to be coming out sometime soon. Not entirely positive when, but hopefully it comes out sooner than later. That being said, though, let me get back into the Quirk apprehension test. The second that this would be announced, Aizawa would actually go on to toss a baseball towards the direction of Izuku. Now, this baseball would have some sort of tracking microchip within it so that they can see how far it goes. And from here, Aizawa would go on to explain to Izuku that it's his job to throw the thing as far as he possibly can, as Izuku, turning towards him, would say, "As far as I can," and Aizawa would say, "As far as you can." Izuku in this moment would go on to begin yanking his other arm. He would like bend his arm in such a weird way as he grabs his elbow and his other arm and begins yanking it back like a slingshot, eventually yanking it back so far that the ball would go and be sent flying like 700 and something meters into the air. As Izuku would say, "Was that good?" And Aizawa would turn to him and say, "That was actually not bad." As Izuku would lift up his hand and say, "That was fun." And the second that Izuku says that, Aizawa would turn to him and say, "Fun? You think you're at UA High to have fun? You're here to learn how to be a hero. Every single time that you're out there on the battlefield, people are going to be at risk. This is life or death, kid. You're not here to have fun. you're here to do your job. As from here, he would go on to explain to all of them, turning to them and saying, if you all think this is fun, how about we up the stakes? Person that comes in last place is going to be getting expelled from UA. As everybody being shocked at this revelation, all except for Momo Yaoyorozu and Izuku, because he kind of was given a scholarship here, so he knows he's not going to be in last place. Plus, he's kind of always positive. Would go on to just be like, yeah, that's a way to raise the stakes. As everybody else would be like, what do you mean raise the stakes? Dude, people are going to fail. As Izuku would say, just do your best and you won't fail. As from here, the test would finally be over and Izuku would have gotten towards the top of the test. Bakugo would have actually done very, very well. Izuku would have got like, let's say 3rd place. Bakugo would have gotten like 4th. You know, Todoroki would have gotten like 2nd, and Yaoyorozu Momo would have gotten 1st place, like in the original. This would pretty much lead to the entire class being, all right, well, who was in last place? To which the class would all turn towards Mineta. Mineta would look at them and would be like, please don't expel me. To which Aizawa would turn to him and say, all right, Mineta, come with me. He would pretty much end up walking Mineta all the way toward Nezu's office, where Mineta would have his, you know, where Mineta would, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, he would basically be expelled. Like, I was looking for a fancier way of saying it, but I'm just going blank. Oh, also another announcement. I'm going to be dropping What If Naruto Had the Lord's Eyes, aka What If Naruto Could Copy Everything. The abilities of the Lord's Eyes is pretty much the Sharingan's copy ability, but like on steroids, so it's just insanely busted. Imagine somebody shoots like a fire style, you know, jutsu, and then behind it shoots like a wind style, or they use like a crazy like Chidori. Naruto, just by seeing this, is gonna have the ability to straight up copy it and just send it right back. That's how OP the Lord's Eyes are in Record of Ragnarok. Oh, not to mention, I'm even gonna be doing that, but for Izuku. So stay tuned for that. That's going to drop as a movie sometime soon. Not entirely positive when exactly, but it's going to be dropping and it's going to be fun. Anyways, jumping back into the video. Sorry that I keep stopping this for so much. I'm just kind of like enjoying myself today. You feel me? Like, I'm not too worried about the story, which, you know, might affect you guys. You know, I know some of you guys are probably like, you know, I don't mind this yapping, and then there's other people who are like, dude, shut up, like, get back to the story. I'm washing dishes. Like, I clicked on this to watch What If Deku, not how Xehther lives his life. You know what I mean? But yeah, no, comment down below real quick before did you guys hear that chair? My bad. I'm going into way too many tangents. Point being, the Quirk apprehension test would finally end, and after that would finally, you know, reach its conclusion, we would essentially now find ourselves in the UA classroom once again, but this time I'd like to say about 2 days later. After this would have happened, everybody would have just gotten off their lunch period, and they would have their final class of the day, hero training, which is essentially the longest class of the day. It's 4 hours long. Everybody would be excited, being like, I wonder what we're gonna do today. With Katsuki being like, if it's anything like yesterday, it's gonna be lame. Suddenly, you just see All Might busting through the door saying, I am here! As, you know, everybody seeing this would be like, it's All Might! And everybody just gets super, super excited. You know what I mean? Like, they all start glazing him and stuff. Bakugo and Izuku are actually the only ones that are not quite shocked to see All Might, but they're still both just so happy. Like, they knew he was gonna teach at UA, but even then, like, they kind of felt a bit shocked. Point being, after this would happen, All Might would take them all outside, to which he would then begin presenting them what they're going to be doing with, you know, the battle trial arc, as everybody would be paired up in teams, and the first team that would be paired up would be Katsuki Bakugo and Izuku Midoriya versus Uraraka and Invisible Girl. It's kind of just going to be one of those fights where it's like, dude, like, this fight is not going to be much of a fight, more of a massacre. The second that this would be announced, Bakugo would turn towards the direction of Uraraka, as he would say, I'll take it easy on you, don't worry. And from here, he would turn to Deku before saying, I'm gonna kill them. As Izuku would look at Bakugo and be like, dude, they're girls, let's chill out a little bit. And Bakugo's like, all right, so 50% explosions. Izuku's like, lower, 40, lower, 30, lower, 20. Yeah, I think they could take 20. I mean, they're in hero school. As Bakugo would say, all right, sounds good. I guess we're gonna be the villains then, eh? As Izuku would say, you know, I never thought I would play the role of a villain, but it's time to get my acting in order. He would close his eyes and open them back up, as seemingly his eyes would like look at him with an evil intention behind them. And Bakugo would actually begin like feeling a shiver go down his spine. He's like, what the heck? As Izuku would turn towards him and say, come on, we gotta make sure this bomb blows up. As from here, you know, they would make their way towards the top of the room, and Uraraka and Invisible Girl would finally end up making their way inside of the room, right? Now, the best way that those two would think that they could possibly win this would be by using Invisible Girl's ability to pretty much be invisible. You know what I mean? What they're thinking is if she can completely go invisible and make their way into the room where the bomb is at, and Uraraka could be the one that opens the door as a distraction, Invisible Girl could make her way towards the bomb and grab it, making it so that they're winners even though they don't actually have to fight. They're thinking we have to use our brains, not our brawn. And so that's exactly what would happen. Izuku would be sitting down staring at the door with a menacing glare, as Bakugo would be like, "You're taking it way too seriously, Izuku," as Izuku would not listen to him saying, "That's not my name." As from here, after that would happen, you would just see Uraraka busting into the door as she would say, "Stop, villains, I'm here to stop you." And Izuku would say, "You and your friend over there," as he would stretch his arm out, grabbing onto Invisible Girl, making sure to grab her by the waist, as she would be like, "Ee!" You know what I mean? Just being like shocked that like she's being touched, she has no clothes on, but Izuku's not touching her anywhere bad, you know what I'm saying? She's just kind of shocked that she got grabbed even though she's literally invisible. As Izuku would hold her up and say, "Do you yield?" And Invisible Girl would be like, "I give up." As Uraraka would be like, "I give up too." They're both just like, "All right, what are we supposed to do?" You know what I mean? They're both just scared. And Bakugo's like, "Are you kidding me? This was hero training for the day? I didn't get to do anything." As Izuku would say, "Calm down, Bakugo. What were you gonna do? I mean, they were girls. Come on now." As from here, Izuku would look down, look back up, and be like, "Come on, cut yourself a break. Just have a good day today." As Bakugo would turn to him and be like, "Did you just switch personalities or something?" As Izuku would say, "Nah, I don't know what you're talking about." And so they would make their way outside, to which everybody would react to the battle, and they'd be like, "Izuku is clearly the MVP." As Froppy would be like, "I wouldn't have wanted to face off against them, Ribbit," you know what I mean? And then you would just have Momo be like, "Yeah, Izuku handled that masterfully. His act as a villain was great. He actually sent chills down my spine." As Bakugo would say, "You're telling me, try being right next to the guy as he's doing that." But anyways, as that would happen, we would then pick our story off the very next day, as All Might would actually be handling some crime on the other side of the city before making his way back to UA. Remember, unlike in the original, All Might this time is fully healed, so this isn't going to be hampering his time with the USJ. So when the USJ period actually comes around, All Might's going to be 100% healthy. So that means that the second that Kurogiri would make his presence known, All Might would be there to jump in and handle the Nomu. Meanwhile, some of the students would have been teleported away right where they were in the original. And because none of them got seriously injured, I'm going to be saying that things pretty much remain just like they do in the original. Izuku, using his Toon Force abilities, would end up jumping into would actually end up finding his weakness for the first time. Or actually, it's a quirk this time around. Should I still give him that weakness to water, where he got teleported into the water so he loses his abilities or something like that? Nah, let's just make him completely busted. Yeah, none of that. Izuku would just fall into the water, and the second that this happens, Izuku begins to just be like drinking all the water, as his belly would begin expanding super big, and then Izuku from his mouth would begin shooting all the water back towards the direction of the villains, who are now, instead of being at a lake, they're literally being shot by have you guys seen those fireman hoses, like how they have super a high amount of pressure? That's what they would have been shot at, and some of them would have literally been launched back 30 to 40 feet. So yeah, these villains were pretty much yielding. After that would happen, Izuku would go on to throw all the water back up, and then Suyu would just watch this. She's like, "That's gross." And Izuku would say, "Nah, it's not gross. I use my quirk." And she's like, "It's still gross." And so they would make their way towards the direction of where the other students were, seeing as Izuku could tell that All Might kind of had that little issue handled. And All Might would piece together the Nomu in about 20 punches. As after that would take place, he would turn towards Shigaraki and actually capture him. Kurogiri would have actually ended up being stopped by Izuku, who would have used his Toon Force to hold him and grab him, pretty much turning him into a full soluble human being. As Izuku, would just be like, "All right, well, you're coming with me," throwing him into one of the vans where they take the villains, nullifying his quirk. As after this would happen, Shigaraki and Kurogiri would actually end up being taken to Tartarus, where after these events would take place, we would now get the UA Sports Festival arc. Now, two things are going to be taking place during this arc, which I think would be very realistic. We saw in the normal My Hero timeline that when All For One ended up getting, taken to Tartarus after his fight with All Might, he ends up being, obviously rescued by the League of Villains. Now, what's going to happen this timeline is that while the UA Sports Festival is going on and many of their heroes are occupied, the League of Villains, alongside a couple of Nomu, would end up breaking out Shigaraki and Kurogiri, seeing as he's an extremely important part of their plan. So even though they end up getting captured in this timeline, they end up being freed courtesy of All For One. Because of this, we pretty much just jump straight into the UA Sports Festival, and I think by the time this video ends, I should probably have covered this whole thing. But anyways, beginning with the race, or actually no, should I do the speech? Should I do the, I mean, obviously we know that with Izuku having the personality that he does in this timeline of just being literally the light of the world, he would just get everybody excited, right? Then we would have the obstacle race to which everybody does their bests, but ultimately I can see Zuko pretty much getting first place because of his wacky abilities, using them to get past these obstacles like they're no problem, and even being able to catapult himself straight to the finish line through a bunch of through not explosions like he did in the original, but just kind of catapulting himself to win, smiling at Katsuki. As after this would take place, Izuku would say, "Guess I beat ya," as Bakugo would be like, "Whatever, Deku. Anyways, you want to team up?" As Izuku would say, "Of course I do." And then he would turn towards the direction of, Uraraka and be like, "Hey, you want to team up too?" And Uraraka would be like, "Sure, I'll do it." And then, he would be just about to invite Invisible Girl because, he had fought her and he wants to, do an act of kindness for defeating her last time. But before he could do that, you would just have Mei Hatsume jump in the way, pushing her out of the way, being like, "I'll be part of your team. Can I? Let me show off my babies." As Izuku's like, can't argue with that enthusiasm. And so, that would pretty much be the team that ends up being formed in the original. Sorry, Tokiyami, you don't end up passing in this timeline. But what takes place is that they end up essentially getting past the cavalry battle through one mean or another, considering that I really don't like covering the cavalry battle unless the main character has some sort of like crazy OP instant win ability that just allows me to blitz by it. So just know they pass. Like, the cavalry battle is just so hard to cover because of the nature of it. But anyways, after that would happen, Izuku's first battle, much like you guys would probably expect, would be against Shinso. Sorry about that, guys. My phone's notifications are on. Deku versus Shinso. Now, the second that this event would start, I'd like to say that Izuku doesn't talk back to Shinso, but that's just not gonna happen. You know what I mean? It's just not. And the second that Izuku would actually go on to be placed under mind control, Izuku would proceed to just stand there. Like, Shinso's telling him jump off the stage, and Izuku's just refusing to do it. He is the freest person alive. Nobody's gonna control him or his will. So Izuku would be fighting back against it, and lo and behold, 3 seconds later, Izuku would completely break out of his mind control. As Izuku would say, "That's a nifty quirk," before then, using a Gum Gum Gatling pretty much to punch Shinso completely off of the stage. After this, Izuku would be congratulated by all the people in the stands, and suddenly, Izuku would find himself facing off against Shoto Todoroki for the second battle. Izuku would begin this whole thing off by just standing there watching what Todoroki will do, as instantly Todoroki would shoot an ice attack towards the direction of Izuku, to which Izuku would jump up into the air, grabbing the glacier by the tip of the iceberg, picking it up completely, and then smashing Todoroki with it, or at least making it seem like he did. Because Todoroki would have used more ice to pretty much create a dome that would, tank most of the impact, which means that the blow that he received was way more minimal than the one that Izuku was trying to give him. From here, Izuku would go in to smash the ice cluster in his hands, causing snow to fall down on everybody, as Izuku would say, "All right, well, let me use this then," as he would create 2 gigantic hands, lifting them up to the sky and saying, "Dodge this!" And from here, Todoroki would form a gigantic ice glacier once more, but this time it's all spiky. So when Izuku's hands fall down to the ground, Izuku would be like, "Ah, that hurt," you know what I mean? As suddenly he'd be like, "Just kidding," and his hands would look normal once again, As Todoroki would be like, "What the heck?" Izuku from here would speed blitz behind Todoroki and tell him that this was fun while it lasted. As Todoroki would turn towards him about to use his flame quirk, as Izuku would use his body to turn it into make it look like he has glasses, and he'd say, you wouldn't burn a guy with glasses, would ya? To which Todoroki would shoot flames straight towards the direction of Izuku, to which Izuku grabs his hand and then turning towards Todoroki would shoot flames right back at him before then saying, guess you would. As Todoroki would then be sent flying off of the arena, crashing into the stands, as he would then be eliminated and Izuku would move on to the final battle against Katsuki Bakugo. This final battle would go much like their usual training events whenever they're trying to face off against each other, with Bakugo doing everything in his power possible to beat Deku, but because of the fact that Deku knows all of Bakugo's moves and he can pretty much reduce Bakugo's quirk to be nothing, would just absolutely destroy Bakugo. This means that he would be getting first place, and unlike in the original when the League of Villains would see potential in Bakugo to be a villain, that would just completely be off the table, because the interactions that Bakugo would have this time would just be so much different. And so this would lead us students back to going to the classroom where they would all be told about two things. Number one, you guys need to pick your hero names, and number two, you guys need to pick a hero agency internship, as the entire class would get super excited, and we would just have like this 30-minute montage where everybody's picking their cool hero names. Izuku would actually go and pick the hero name. Actually, for that, I'm going to leave it up to you guys down below in the comments. The comment that I pinned down below is going to be the name that we go with. So good luck, leave your comment, and I'll shout you out into part 3. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, it's been your boy Xehther, and I am out. Peace.